Arrival. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the fringes of the Sol system, their sleek vessels gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Commander Zorax stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen displaying their target. Earth. Report. Zorax barked at his science officer. Scans show a Class 3 civilization. Commander, the officer replied. Primitive technology. No signs of extraplanetary colonies or spacecraft. The planet is ripe for conquest. Zorax allowed himself a tight smile. After cycles of searching, they had finally found a suitable world to expand their empire's reach. Prepare a landing party, he ordered. We'll make short work of these savages. But as the fleet approached Earth, the sensors began picking up anomalous readings. The major population centers were empty. No communications chatter filled the airwaves. It was as if the planet was devoid of life. Commander, the comms officer called out, we're being hailed from the surface. Audio only. Put it through, Zorax commanded. There was a crackle of static. Then a voice filled the bridge. Hey there, the voice said casually. Welcome to Earth. Just saw you guys pull up in orbit. Quite the light show. Zorax composed himself. This single being's flippant tone was not the reaction he expected from a species facing imminent subjugation. This is Commander Zorax of the Cleith Imperium. We claim this world in the name of the Cleith. Your species will submit or face annihilation. There was a moment of silence. Then the voice spoke again, sounding almost amused. Yeah, about that. I'm afraid you're a bit late to the party. See, we already left. Zorax frowned. What do you mean left? Where is the rest of your species? The voice chuckled. Oh, they're long gone, pal. Packed up and headed for greener pastures. I'm just here to lock up and turn the lights off. Name's Zach. By the way, pleasure to meet you. Zorax slammed his fist on the console, his frustration boiling over. This was not how a conquest was supposed to go. You expect me to believe your entire species abandoned their homeworld? Impossible. Zach sighed over the comm. Listen, Zorax, was it? You might want to take a seat. It's a bit of a long story. Confusion. Zorax paced the bridge, his mind reeling from the humans' absurd claims. Billions of beings don't just vanish overnight, especially not a primitive species barely past their first tentative steps into space. It had to be a trick, some kind of ploy to catch the Cleith off guard. Your deception will not avail you, Zorax said, addressing Zach through the still-open comm channel. We have conquered countless worlds. Yours will be no different. Deception, Zach replied, sounding almost offended. I've been nothing but honest with you, Zed. Can I call you Zed? It's Zorax, the commander growled. Right. Anyway, I'm telling you, there's nobody here to conquer. Humanity saw the writing on the wall and decided to make a tactical retreat. Zorax's science officer spoke up, confusion evident in his voice. But our long-range scans indicated a thriving population. Billions of life signs. Zach tesked over the comm. Amazing what a bit of misdirection and a few well-placed decoys can do, isn't it? We've known about your little empire for a while now. Figured it was only a matter of time before you set your sights on us. Zorax shook his head, refusing to accept the human's words. Even if what you say is true, fleeing your homeworld is an act of cowardice. You doom yourselves by abandoning your resources, your infrastructure. See, that's where you're wrong, Zed, Zach said, and Zorax could practically hear the smirk in his voice. We didn't flee. We adapted. We evolved. Earth was just the starting point, a cradle. But we've outgrown it. Zorax slammed his fist onto the console, the metal denting under the force of his blow. Enough. You will tell us where your species has gone, or we will raise this world to cinders. Zach's voice took on a hard edge. Go ahead, be my guest. Knock yourself out. Just don't expect to find anything of value down here. Like I said, we've moved on to bigger and better things. The comm channel went dead, leaving Zorax staring at the blue-green world below, a sinking feeling growing in the pit of his stomach. If the human was telling the truth, then the Cleef had gravely underestimated their foe. Disbelief. Zorax refused to believe it. The notion that an entire species, numbering in the billions, could simply pack up and leave their homeworld was preposterous. And yet, the evidence was staring him in the face. The emptied cities, the lack of resistance, and the infuriatingly calm human on the other end of the comm. "This is some kind of trick," Zorax muttered, his eyes narrowing as he studied the view screen. "They must be hiding, cowering in their underground bunkers like the primitives they are." His second-in-command, a tall, spindly creature named Crix, approached cautiously. "Commander, perhaps we should listen to the human. If they truly have left, then there is no glory to be had here, no resources to claim." Zorax rounded on Crix, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "You would have us turn tail and run, based on the word of a single, insignificant being. We are Cleef. We do not retreat in the face of adversity." Crix bowed his head submissively. "Of course, Commander. I meant no disrespect." Zorax turned back to the view screen, his gaze fixed on the blue marble before him. "We will land as planned. If the humans are hiding, we will flush them out. If they have truly fled, then we will make an example of their cowardice." As the landing party prepared to disembark, Zach's voice crackled over the comm once more. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Zed." Zorax's eye twitched at the human's casual use of the nickname. "And why is that, human? Do you have some hidden defenses waiting to strike us down?" Zach laughed, the sound grating on Zorax's nerves. "Nah, nothing like that. It's just, well, Earth's kind of a mess right now. We didn't exactly have time to tidy up before we left." "What are you babbling about?" Zorax snapped. "I'm talking about the fact that we stripped the planet of anything valuable on our way out. Resources, technology, you name it. All that's left down there is a bunch of empty buildings and some very confused wildlife." Zorax's fists clenched at his sides. "You expect me to believe you could dismantle an entire civilization in such a short span of time? Believe what you want, Zed," Zach replied, his tone infuriatingly nonchalant. "But I'm telling you, there's nothing down there worth your time. We made sure of that." The commander's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. If the human was telling the truth, then the Cleef had wasted precious time and resources chasing a ghost. But if it was a lie, then they risked walking into a trap. Either way, Zorax knew he couldn't back down now. His pride wouldn't allow it. Revelation. The landing party touched down on the outskirts of what had once been a sprawling metropolis. Now, the towering skyscrapers stood silent and empty, their windows dark and lifeless. The streets were deserted, littered with the detritus of a civilization that had seemingly vanished overnight. Zorax led his team through the eerie, abandoned city, their weapons at the ready. Every shadow seemed to hold the promise of an ambush. Every corner a potential hiding spot for the elusive humans. But as they pressed deeper into the heart of the city, it became increasingly clear that Zach had been telling the truth. There were no signs of life, no indications that anyone had occupied these buildings in quite some time. The infrastructure was intact, but stripped bare of anything useful. It was as if the humans had systematically dismantled their own civilization, leaving nothing behind but a hollow shell. As the realization sank in, Zorax's comm crackled to life once more. "Find anything interesting down there, Zed?" Zach asked, his voice tinged with amusement. Zorax ground his teeth, his pride warring with the undeniable truth before him. "Where did you go?" he demanded. "Where has your species fled to?" Zach's laughter echoed across the empty streets. "Oh, Zed, you really haven't been paying attention, have you? We didn't flee anywhere. We expanded." "What do you mean?" Zorax asked, a sinking feeling in his gut. "I mean, while you and your little empire were busy conquering primitive worlds, humanity was reaching for the stars. We've got colonies on planets you've never even dreamed of, spread out across the galaxy like a cosmic tapestry. Zorax's eyes widened, the implications of Zack's words hitting him like a physical blow. Impossible, he breathed. We would have detected such a vast network of settlements. Would you, though? Zack countered. I mean, you didn't even realize Earth was empty until you were practically on our doorstep. Face it, Zed, you underestimated us. And now, well, let's just say the tables have turned. Zorax's mind raced, trying to process the magnitude of his miscalculation. If the humans truly had a galactic presence, then the Cleath were no longer the dominant power they had believed themselves to be. They were facing a rival, one that had outsmarted and outmaneuvered them at every turn. What do you want? Zorax asked, his voice tight with barely contained rage and fear. Want? Zack replied, sounding almost surprised. I don't want anything, Zed. I'm just here to deliver a message. Earth is off limits, and if you or your empire decide to come knocking on our door again, well, let's just say we won't be as hospitable as we have been today. With that, the comm went dead, leaving Zorax and his team alone in the ruins of a once great city, the weight of their own hubris bearing down upon them like a crushing force. Desperation. Zorax paced the bridge of his ship, his mind racing with the implications of Zack's revelation. The humans, a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak, had outsmarted them at every turn. Not only had they abandoned their homeworld, but they had spread out across the galaxy, establishing a network of colonies that rivaled the Cleath's own empire. Commander, Crix said tentatively, what are your orders? Zorax rounded on his second-in-command, his eyes blazing with barely contained fury. We cannot let this stand, he growled. The humans have made fools of us, and we will not allow such an insult to go unanswered. Crix shifted uncomfortably, clearly uneasy with his commander's increasingly erratic behavior. But sir, if what the human says is true, then we are outmatched. We have no idea of the extent of their reach or their capabilities. Then we will find out, Zorax snapped. We will make the human talk, make him reveal the location of their colonies. And then we will crush them, one by one, until they learn the price of defying the Cleath. Crix's eyes widened in alarm. You mean to torture him? Zorax's mandibles clicked in agitation. If that's what it takes, yes. We cannot let this opportunity slip through our grasp. The human is our key to unraveling the mystery of their disappearance and their true strength. With a curt nod to his communications officer, Zorax opened a channel to the surface once more. Human, he said, his voice dripping with menace. You will tell us where your species has gone, or we will make your life a living nightmare. There was a moment of silence. Then Zack's voice filled the bridge, sounding almost bored. Is that supposed to scare me, Zed? I hate to break it to you, but I don't actually know where everyone went. Zorax slammed his fist onto the console. Do not play games with me, human. I will have the truth, one way or another. Zack sighed. I'm not playing games, Zed. I really don't know. See, when humanity decided to leave Earth, they didn't exactly send out a memo with everyone's new address. It was more of a scatter to the winds kind of thing. The commander's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe that you, the last human on Earth, have no knowledge of your species' whereabouts? Believe what you want, Zack replied. But it's the truth. I stay behind because, well, someone had to. But I don't have some secret map leading to humanity's hidden strongholds. I'm just a guy enjoying one last sunset on an empty world. Zorax's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him as the realization sank in. The human was telling the truth. They had no way of tracking down the rest of the species, no way of exacting their revenge or asserting their dominance. They had been outsmarted and outplayed in every conceivable way. Resignation. The bridge was silent, save for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. Zorax sat in his command chair, his gaze fixed on the view screen, where Earth hung like a blue and green jewel against the backdrop of space. He had come so far, so certain of his victory, only to find himself outmaneuvered and outmatched by a species he had grossly underestimated. "Commander," Crix said softly, breaking the silence, "what do we do now?" Zorax closed his eyes, the weight of his failure bearing down upon him. "What can we do?" he replied, his voice tinged with bitterness. "The humans have proven themselves to be a formidable adversary, one we are not prepared to face." Crix nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of their situation. "Then perhaps it is best if we withdraw, regroup, and reassess our strategy." Zorax's eyes snapped open, a flicker of anger reigniting in their depths. "Withdraw? You would have us tuck our tails between our legs and flee like cowards." "No, Commander," Crix replied calmly. "I suggest we use this opportunity to learn from our mistakes. The humans have shown us that there are other ways to achieve dominance, ways that do not rely solely on brute force and conquest." As much as it galled him to admit it, Zorax knew his second-in-command was right. They had been so focused on expanding their empire through sheer might that they had neglected other avenues of power. The humans, in their cleverness and adaptability, had exposed the flaws in their strategy. With a heavy sigh, Zorax activated the comm channel once more. "Human," he said, his voice tired and resigned, "it seems you have bested us this day." Zack's voice crackled over the comm, sounding almost sympathetic. "It's not about besting anyone," said. "We just want to live our lives, explore the universe on our own terms." Zorax nodded, even though he knew the human couldn't see him. "And what would you have us do now? Slink back to our empire in shame, knowing that we have been outplayed by a species we once considered inferior?" There was a moment of silence, then Zack spoke again, his tone thoughtful. "You know, there are plenty of other worlds out there, worlds that might actually welcome a little conquest and subjugation. Maybe you should set your sights on them, leave humanity to its own devices." Zorax's mandibles clicked in surprise. "You would give us advice after all that has transpired?" Zack chuckled. "Call it a parting gift. Consider it a reminder that not every species is as keen on independence as we are. Who knows, maybe you'll find some folks out there who appreciate a good old-fashioned invasion." The commander found himself considering the human's words. Perhaps there was wisdom in seeking out worlds that would be more receptive to their rule. Solitude. The alien fleet hung in orbit, their once proud ships now seeming small and insignificant against the backdrop of Earth. Zorax stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the view screen, watching as the last of his troops returned from the surface. Their mission, once so clear and certain, had crumbled to dust in the face of the humans' unexpected strategy. With a heavy heart, Zorax gave the order to depart. The engines hummed to life, and the fleet began to pull away from Earth, leaving the blue-green world behind. As they set course for the outer reaches of the system, Zorax found himself wondering what the future held for the Cleath, now that they had been so thoroughly humbled. On the surface, Zack watched the alien ships dwindle to pinpricks of light in the sky, then disappear altogether. He was alone now, truly alone, on a world that had once been home to billions. The silence was deafening, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the distant cries of the few remaining animals. He made his way back to the small shelter he had set up, a modest dwelling amidst the ruins of a once thriving city. Inside, he sat down heavily, his gaze drawn to the photographs that lined the walls, images of family, friends, and the vibrant civilization that had flourished on Earth for so long. Zack's mind wandered back to the day humanity had made the decision to leave, to scatter to the stars, and start anew on countless worlds. It had been a difficult choice, one fraught with uncertainty and fear, but in the end, they had known it was the only way to ensure their survival and their freedom. He had volunteered to stay behind, to be the caretaker of Earth in its final days. Someone had to bear witness to the end of an era, to the passing of a world that had been the cradle of their species for so long. It was a lonely duty, but one he had accepted with a heavy heart and a sense of purpose. Now, As he sat in the silence of the empty planet, Zach found himself wondering about the fate of his fellow humans. Were they thriving on their new worlds, building new civilizations and reaching for the stars? Or were they facing challenges and struggles he could scarcely imagine? He would never know, he supposed. His role was to remain here, to watch over Earth until the end of his days. But as he looked out the window, taking in the breathtaking view of the sunset over the abandoned city, Zach felt a sense of peace wash over him. Humanity had achieved something remarkable, something that would be remembered long after he was gone. They had not only survived, but thrived in the face of adversity. They had shown that they were a force to be reckoned with, a species that could adapt and overcome, no matter the odds. And though he was the last of his kind on Earth, Zach knew that he was not truly alone. Out there, among the stars, his people lived on, carrying the torch of humanity into a future bright with promise and possibility. With a smile on his face, Zach settled back in his chair, content in the knowledge that though the Earth may be empty, the human spirit would endure, shining bright across the cosmos for all eternity.